you can't even tell where it's welded because he's smoothed everything out. It's just, it's amazing. So
that's awesome. I always like tease. It's like I am absolutely not a fabricator at all. So I always joke that like my husband can do all the welding and I just get to do the grinding because that's the only thing I know how to do. I'm like, I'll just take care of this part. You do that part.
there you go.
Welcome to the Gearheads and Gasoline podcast, where we dive into the high-octane world of market-leading shop owners, shop employees, and automotive enthusiasts from the aftermarket, restoration, performance, and racing industries. So strap in as we take you on an awesome journey with our guests as they share their real-life stories, lessons learned, business advice, and unfiltered insights to help you beat the school of hard knocks. Gearheads and Gasoline, fueling your success.
Hello, everyone. I'm Barry Alt with Motorhead Digital, and my co-host is Annette Bauer with Annette Bauer Creative. Today, we're thrilled to welcome Thomas Dickerson, the 25-year-old talent behind Thomas Performance Engineering, to the Gearheads and Gasoline podcast. Thomas has already made a name for himself, landing in the top 10 of the 2021 SEMA Battle of the Builders Young Guns competition with his 67 Shelby Mustang. He's now working on an exciting 67 C10 build set to debut in 2025. With a tech college background and experience competing locally and nationally at Skills USA, Thomas brings a rare mix of skill and creativity to his custom builds. He's also setting up his own custom build shop to take cars from bare bones to show-ready masterpieces. We're pumped to have Thomas on board, so let's dive in.
Well, welcome to the show. I actually saw the little reel that you guys did when Barry saw you at the Good Guys, I think it was.
Good Guys Columbus, yep.
Yeah, and your guys' reel did fantastic. Like, you guys got all kinds of views on it, which was just dope. That's super awesome, which obviously speaks a lot to your demographic of people who are interested in what you're doing. So I'm super excited to have you on board today. And in traditional fashion, as we usually kick off our Gearheads and Gasoline podcast, we like to know, what's your favorite drink?
Favorite drink is probably Fanta, like grape Fanta, probably.
Oh, grape.
Yeah.
I've not had that one before. I've had the orange. That one's really yummy.
Yeah,
I think I've had orange, but that's about it.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's like a East Coast thing. I don't have any grape out here. Shoot. I feel left out now.
I don't know if
search of the grape Fanta.
He's in Georgia, so it might be a southern thing.
Might be.
Wow. You guys do have like the original kind of Kool-Aid still. So
yeah,
that's good. And that is just that is just all sugar. Like, you just might as well stick a straw in a cup of sugar and go for it.
Hey, we
add a
grew
little
up on
water.
that. Maybe that's what's wrong with me. Real cool.
Well, cool. I like that option.
Cool. So Fanta it is.
Fanta it is.
Yeah. So Thomas, back in 2021, when we were at the SEMA show, we met you for the first time, and you were in the Battle of the Builders, and you had a car for, what was it? Young Guns, right? You were in the Young Guns. But I want to back up a little bit. We would like to understand where you started, how you really got interested in cars, and what led up to actually being at SEMA and being in the Young Guns. That's a big deal.
Yeah. So, kind of like just throughout high school, I kind of had like, I guess, a somewhat of a knowledge of cars and kind of how they worked. And I watched a lot of, like, at the time, Gas Monkey Garage, which was kind of at its peak. And I kind of knew Aaron Kaufman and those guys there. So I bought a 67 Mustang Coupe. I believe it was when I was 16. So that was like the first car. It was already running and driving. Didn't really need a whole lot of work to it. So that kind of got me, I guess, further interested. And then as I was kind of ending high school, I was trying to figure out kind of like what I wanted to do long term, I think, at that point. And because I'm always someone like that who's always, not procrastinating. I'm always trying to think about the next step and stuff like that. So I found a 67 Mustang Fastback in South Carolina. And at that point, I was kind of wanting to build a Shelby. And so I ended up purchasing that car when I was 18. And as I was leaving high school, I was trying to figure out kind of the next step on that project. I got everything kind of roughly figured out as far as what I wanted to do to it, but I didn't know how to do the metal work or the body and paint. And so that's when I was trying to figure out, like, where do I go to learn that kind of stuff. And I started looking around locally, and I kind of found Athens Technical College and figured out that they taught basically metalwork, bodywork, paintwork. And so leaving Westminster Christian Academy in Watkinsville, I started at Athens Technical College that fall. And after graduating from high school, I started at Athens Tech and started taking classes. And I kind of let my teacher know kind of the car that I had, that I purchased and stuff like that. And I was going through my coursework like a breeze. It wasn't, none of it was challenging me because I'm very mechanical minded and I can think kind of mechanically. And so I was making through class really easily. Nothing really kind of gave me any difficulty. And so I kind of asked him at one point, I think it was probably at the end of the first semester, I asked, hey, can I bring my Mustang up here and try and do some metal work on it and stuff like that. And started bringing it up there. And then after like the first week, he's like, you can work on it, after you're done with your classwork. And so at that point, it was every single day from the beginning of that project up until SEMA. Basically, that car was at Athens Technical College being worked on. And it was just me working on it. Other students are not allowed to work on other students' projects. And so,
did anybody help you? Did any other students get involved with your project car, or was it more just you after hours and things like that?
Yeah, it was strictly just me after hours. Students were allowed to help, like if I needed to push it into the paint booth or move parts around. That was the only thing that they were allowed to do. More so just because of the legal standpoint at the school and
liability
stuff. Yeah, liability. And so, but yeah, so it ended up, I was able to take it over there, and I kind of had all the tools at my disposal, obviously, and so that's kind of where the car lived for the next 2 years. And I did all the metal work there, the body work, the paint work, and it, like I said, basically I'd work on my classwork from, I think we had class, it varied for the first 3 or 4 semesters because I was a collision technician. So that's what I was going to school for, was collision repair. And so our classwork would be anywhere from like 8 to 12, and then I'd be there from 12 to 4. Or if my teacher stayed late, I'd stay until he basically locked up the shop. And so it was basically at that point every single day. And then once I had finished all my classes and coursework, it turned into a full-time internship where
nice.
I'm going to the school from 8 to 4 Monday through Friday, just working on my project at that point. And when that started happening, I enrolled in mechanical engineering drafting, where we learned CAD, SolidWorks, 3D printing, machining. And then the third degree that I've been working on is CNC machine. That's actually what I'm working on right now. So I have 3 degrees that I'm going to be hopefully, keeping with me.
Wow. Did
awesome.
the teacher help at all work on the car or give you direction or anything like that? Or did you just take what you learned in class and apply it?
No, he absolutely did help me with the project. My biggest struggle on the car was getting the fiberglass to fit, and he had worked on a couple Mustangs prior, and he's got a lot of experience just through the collision world. He used to work for Mercedes, and he had a lot of just kind of the old school experience that you kind of have to work on something like this. And so since I was wanting to turn the Fastback into a Shelby, there was a lot of fiberglass parts I had purchased through another company, and they were to fit the original car, which the original cars had really wide gaps, pretty much everywhere. And so I wanted to tighten up all the gaps and things like that. And so he'd help me. He'd basically show me like a portion of the car, like if we were getting the trunk to fit to the inside, between the quarters and everything. He would show me how to do some stuff, and then I would work on it by myself for, maybe 3 or 4 or maybe a whole day. And then I'd come and get him and have him check it and see if there's anything I need to improve on. So that's kind of where that kind of began. But yeah, he definitely 100% jumped in and helped me, helped me get through some of that project for sure. And
How hard? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, you're good. Yeah, it's just having him kind of like, I guess his experience, but also his, just his willingness to help a student bring a project in. I think that's, to this day, I'm still like the current project you're going to hear about probably in a little bit. That one I'm working on right now at Athens Technical College as well. And just his willingness to get behind a student like me and a project like the one that I did that went to SEMA. That's the difference for me. Where I'm at right now, it's 100% because of him.
Did he? That's awesome. We talk about gaps and things like that, and we hear about old cars and everything we see at SEMA is perfectly gapped and everything. Did he teach you how to address that and how to get it, the work that had to go in, some custom stuff probably, right, to get those gaps perfect? Because there's some stuff I saw out there. They're doing some crazy stuff with with metal to fix that.
Really nice gaps. Yeah. We sort of did. It was on the Shelby because I honestly, at that point, I wasn't even aware of all the, really tight gap work that you could do. And so on the Shelby, we gapped it. I basically gapped the car. I think it was right at 3/16 on some of the hood and the parts that I could gap. I didn't really have that much knowledge on metalworking a gap yet because I wasn't at that level.
Gotcha.
And so on the current project I got, obviously I've gotten it to that level, unfortunately, and it's going to bite me in the butt now. So but on the Shelby, I didn't have that ability. The car is gapped out for what it is with the original metal we had. I was able to use that at my disposal, and there's like 2 gaps that I'm not satisfied with, but overall the car is really tight. Everything is gapped out really well for a first. That was the
awesome.
first car I ever built. So
when we were in SEMA, we had long conversations. I met your dad. I had conversations with your dad, but we want to hear about what your dad told me a little bit, how crazy and focused are so much that you ended up in the hospital.
yeah, I don't know if I'd completely put that on the car's fault, but yeah,
Well,
I think
no,
it
not
was
the car's fault, but
yeah, yeah, yeah.
you're determined, right? And you have a mission.
Yeah. I think it was the beginning of 2021. I think I came back to school January, I think it was the 14th. I was at the local engine shop, Gabriel's Engines here in Winterville. They've been helping me with a lot of the mechanical stuffs because I had to rebuild the motor, and I bought a used Tremec 5-speed that I took apart, and I was actually working on cleaning that over there. And I was cleaning the casing of the transmission. I don't know what it was that day. I don't know if it was the mineral spirits because their shop, it's ventilated really well and they have a really nice shop. But all I remember is I was pulling the case out and I completely just blacked out and I didn't remember anything. So thankfully Frankie over there, he's always running the CNC machine, he grabbed me before I hit the wall. And obviously in a machine shop you have a lot of very sharp objects, but they were able to rehabilitate me really quick, and he's a firefighter, so he was able to get me the help I needed quick. But yeah,
your dad tells me
hasn't happened yet again, thankfully.
But Thomas isn't going to let me talk to his dad ever again, but your dad tells me that you're so focused that you forget to eat lunch, you don't take breaks, you just keep going. I think that's awesome, but you got to take care of yourself.
I know. Yeah.
It is, but I can tell you, like, from the performance side of stuff, that it's not uncommon, right? We see it all the time, and on my side of the field, where like you're just so focused and busy on getting stuff done for the day, whatever it might be, whether you're running a car or you're just getting a car prepped for a race or whatever it might be, that
Yep.
like the hours just fly by, right? And like, you know that you have this list that you got to get knocked out, and those are the things that you're really just like, this is it, this is where I need to, you know, like focus on. And like eating or sitting down to take a break sometime is really like the last thing that crosses your mind.
Yeah, I mean, I think when I was building the Shelby, I mean, I rarely take breaks, but like if I take a lunch, I try to, you know, make up for it. But like I rarely take breaks just because of how limited my time is at technical college. Unfortunately, I only have from 8 to 4. So I mean, literally, I mean, when I'm working on this truck, I'm burning 7.5 hours every single day, and I got about a 30-minute lunch I take. So, but once I get my shop going, I'm definitely gonna, you know, relax that a bit. But right now, unfortunately, yeah, that's kind of the Achilles heel right now.
So that'll be your famous last words. So I'm going to hold you to that, because in like a year from now, when your shop is already up and running, I'm going to come back and be like, so you remember that you said you were going to take breaks thing?
Yeah, I don't believe that for a minute. You were at the SEMA, you know, we met you when your car was sitting there in the Young Guns Battle of the Builders. Dean, one of my team members, really found you and said, I like this kid. He's a youth coming into the industry, things like that. But when did you decide, or who pointed you in the direction of actually even going to the SEMA show with the car and submitting the Battle of the Builders? I know you have some mentors out there. Were they involved in that?
At that time when I submitted for SEMA Young Guns, I didn't know of any of the people like me and you know that I know, and so it was something that was kind of in the forefront of my mind that I was working on. Kind of like, I think I kind of heard about. Well, I knew about SEMA when I started the Shelby build, but I didn't really think that I could get a car to that level at a technical college, and so that's why it just never crossed my mind up until the end. After I painted the car, I was like, I probably need to try and apply, and so I applied. I think I want to say it was April. It was either April or May of 2021, and I basically painted the car that past February or that past October, and so everything was still going together, and I managed to apply. They let me do the interview with it partially completed. They just needed to make sure it ran, obviously, and stuff like that.
Right.
The only thing it didn't have was glass, so it wasn't like it was going to be a deal breaker at that point. But I ended up getting that golden ticket because it was during COVID, so they were only allowed 3 tickets. So they basically told me I had to win the entire East Coast to win that 1 ticket to get it out there, and so I ended up pulling it off and won the ticket.
Nice.
Here we are.
That's awesome. So I mentioned mentors. They've come in after the Shelby, right? Did you meet them at SEMA? Can you mention them, and how are they supporting you with your current build?
At SEMA, I didn't really. I networked a lot with companies and stuff that I had previously worked on or tried to work on with the Shelby, and didn't really get a whole lot of support, I guess, in a way. The main company that supported me a lot was Justin Olson with Dakota Digital. He stepped in and helped me with the gauges on the Shelby, and so he was about the only one on that project, I believe, for the most part, that really saw something, and so he helped me with the gauges, and we got it out there and stuff like that. And but the mentors and stuff, I didn't meet one very close mentor until we got to Birmingham the year after SEMA. So it would have been 2022 and Birmingham. That's kind of where I started meeting a lot of these builders and stuff. At SEMA, I wasn't, that was the first big show I've ever been to. And Young Guns, they were taking us all around trying to meet people and things like that. And I'd get there early in the morning at like 7:30, I think, clean the car, take the cover off, and then I'd basically be running around that whole show. I think that whole entire week I met with 223 companies. And
oh, wow.
Gosh.
C10, the C10 project I'm working on right now, I've got 35 companies that have backed me on this project the whole way through. And so that's kind of why I did that, so I had that opportunity at my hand and I took it. So.
Cool. Yeah, you definitely got to get out there and network and meet people, have conversations. We did, we were talking earlier about the little clip we did during Good Guys show. And I know you were all over that show meeting people, and the chassis that you have done was in the Art Morrison booth. That's where we interviewed you. So they've been heavily involved in that. Annette, you ought to see this chassis. It's just, you can't even tell where it's welded because he's smoothed everything out. It's just, it's amazing. So
that's awesome. I always like tease it's like I am absolutely not a fabricator at all. So I always joke that like my husband can do all the welding and I just get to do the grinding because that's the only thing I know how to do. I'm like, I'll just take care of this part. You do that part.
There you go. I mentioned mentors. I want to circle back around to that because at Motorhead Digital and with Annette and with NetBauer Creative and our podcast is really, we want to focus on youth engagement. And so being that you're youth, you had some mentors that are helping you get noticed, have they taken you to meet certain people and say, you need to talk to this guy and this is why? How have your mentors or people in the industry helped you get to where you are now in that?
For a good example, I have a lot of really good mentors that I've networked with after having the Shelby done. The first show we took the Shelby to was World of Wheels in 2022. And at that show, it's not as big of a show, obviously, as SEMA. It's more of a smaller good guy show, basically, and it's an all indoor show. So I was walking around at that show and I noticed a really nice build. At the time, he was working on an Impala that he was going to be debuting, I believe, at Grand National, I want to say. And so I met Will Posey with Big Oak Garage, and to this day, he's probably one of the best people I've run into. And he's definitely, I don't even have words to put in my mouth for how, supportive he has been of what I'm trying to do and guiding me and things like that. I have lots of stories being at his shop, working on the C10 at his shop. I think Will, just in general, just to give you an example, he's definitely pointed me in the right direction as far as like, what to do when you're starting a shop, trying to pick the right, make the right decisions on certain things. And, but definitely, like, as I'm working on the C10, I've been asking them about certain shows to take it to, and, certain things to do to the truck. What's the next thing that I need to do as far as the metalwork to improve my, metalwork capabilities and things like that. And, me and him both agree the Shelby and the truck, the current project I have, are nowhere in the same ballpark together. They're completely different builds. Even though the Shelby's won a lot of great awards and everything, I definitely don't think they can be put in the same, genre of build anymore. They're definitely two different builds, and I've definitely raised my experience and fabrication skills on this new build. But
I think, out of those, how many vendors are supporting your build? Motorhead Digital is one of them that's supporting you. You and I had a conversation about, is that truck going to be ready for SEMA? And you're kind of like, if I work 24/7, and you thought about that, and then you talked about Will and you had a conversation with him, and he says, look, this is what you need to do. And kind of, slowed your roll a little bit, which I think was very important. Because,
no, I agree. I wanted to get it back to SEMA, and kind of, not to say anything about SEMA, but with me starting my business and all the money I have invested right now in the building and paint booth, and I mean, we got to build another building to put the booth in and stuff like that. And at the end of the day, we're going to have 8,000 square feet, approaching 10,000. So it's one of those things where I was kind of considering, and if the right opportunity still opens, when we get the truck done, it very well could be out there, but I don't know about a debut. But we're going to be trying to find a different show to debut at just because of the cost and, things like that. But yeah, Will's definitely, when I talked to him about it, when I talked to you about it, obviously those things were going through my head, and I'm one of those people where I'm trying to get a project done as quick as I can so I can show it. And I was thinking about this other day, I've only been working on the C10 for 2 years and 4 months, and the Shelby took me 3 years, and it's an average build versus a complete custom build. And I've done this one in 2 years and 4 months, and when you look back at it, I don't want to tell you how many hour difference there is between those, just 2.5 years basically. So it's insane. But
I want to touch on real quick. One of the reasons why we started the podcast was because we both bring, like lots of experience from the marketing realm, especially as it applies to the automotive industry. And a big part of that was looking at information and tips and tricks and ways to understand how you're getting your business started, right? Like you're just in that beginning phase. And I think that there's a really important time for us to kind of zoom in on that a little bit, if you will, and kind of talk about like what made you decide, okay, I want to take this from something that I really enjoy doing to I'm going to do this as a full-fledged business, especially at your age, right? Because that's a lot to take. That's a lot to bite off. It's a lot to commit to. And like you said, there's so many things that you have to take into consideration. What was that catalyst for you that said this is what I'm going to do?
It was, I want to say, so after the Shelby, I somewhat picked up a lead on a client at SEMA for another project, and that one didn't end up turning out to be anything. And so all the companies I networked with, I ended up deciding, hey, let's do the C10. The C10's been in our family since my grandfather owned it day one in 1967. And so it was one of those decisions where as I'm working on the C10, the question that was going through my mind is do I need to go work for someone, or should it, or, can I do it by myself? And obviously you can't do it by yourself forever. You're going to have to at least grow at some point, because you can't do it by yourself. But
really,
yeah. So I think that decision kind of came to mind, and I don't mind. I 100% don't mind working for someone. I got 3 people I'd go work for tomorrow if I had to, and I really don't want to have to pull that trigger ever if I need to. But it came down to that decision where it's like, do you want to do it yourself, or do you want to go and work for someone? And I kind of always had kind of the vision to start my own shop, and ultimately, and it's still right now, it's still a possibility that we're working on, but I'm working on a couple projects in CAD right now that are going to be more of a production based vehicle, and something that's more streamlined, and something that I've been working on for the past 2 years. And so we might, depending if right now I have a client that's interested in one, so if that bill goes through, then we might debut that one. That might be the kickoff of kind of what could be more to that. But initially I decided I wanted to start my own business to do more of a production-based, kind of almost similar to Velocity in the sense, and Cody down there, but do kind of my own thing, obviously, something similar to like what Singer does with Porsche. And I kind of just, my head evolves around the engineering aspect and being able to improve designs over and over again. And so doing the truck and meeting Will has definitely pushed me out of my boundaries and definitely taught me a lot of custom metal work and things like that. And so that's definitely been something that's been able to expedite that process for me. But yeah.
That's awesome. I think that it's, like super important, just like you said, about having a mentor to help you in making those decisions and understanding what that all entails, right? Because it is a lot to take on, like, hey, I'm going to start my own business. I'm going to, run this on my decisions, right? Like, you're making that commitment. Like, I like to say, like, you're building your empire instead of building somebody's empire for them. And having a mentor and people that you can kind of lean back on and collaborate with or just brainstorm with to make sure that, one, you are doing the all things that you need to from a business aspect, right? Like figuring out what your taxes are going to be, figuring out what your marketing needs to be, figuring out where you're going to be as physical, like there's so many different things that you have to kind of put in place. And I think it's super cool to see somebody that is as ambitious as you are, and is just headstrong of like, this is something that's really important to me. Like, you really feel passionate about it. I can tell that you do, which is like, it's really cool to see that, especially as we see youth coming into this industry generationally. There's so much knowledge that comes from like older generations that have been there. And I think it's really cool to kind of see you bringing in your own, like even with help from older generations, but bringing in your own.
Yeah. And going off what I said earlier, it was kind of a decision where, and hopefully, things are going to pan out and work, but, we're thankful I have the backing of both my parents who kind of see that same thing. And so, neither of my parents are in this industry, and I've learned from day one. After I was at SEMA in 21, I was looking around and not to say that all of them are, because obviously not all of these guys who are in the industry right now started off the coattails of their parents and kind of kept their parent shop going. But a lot of them that I've learned have had like a previous shop in their background, whether their parents had owned it or a friend owned it and they kind of jumped on board. And so it's a monumental task coming from basically a ground up to where we're trying to get. And it's a lot of money. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of late nights. I'm hoping everything's going to pay off, but it's definitely something where it's not for the faint of heart. Unfortunately, it definitely, there's a lot of stress.
So Thomas, I do know about some of that stress that you're talking about from you. And, both Annette and I have businesses, so we understand that. But I want to dig into the pros and cons and lessons learned, because there's a number of things as you've gotten this building that you've run into that, and our hope is that other people listening to this podcast will learn from you. So talk about, because I know a number of things that you've run into. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so when we started planning out what we're going to do to build a shop and everything, I found property in several different locations around Athens, Georgia, primarily Oglethorpe, Georgia, which is Lexington. It's about 5 minutes outside Athens off a major U.S. highway. And so we found several different key pieces of property. I started getting quotes for buildings and all kinds of stuff, contracts, because you got, concrete, electrical, plumbing, HVAC. You start adding up those numbers, it gets high. So just to build a 5,000 square foot building on a new piece of property, and the land out here, it's not, we're not in a city really. It's kind of somewhat rural and between Athens. Athens is where University of Georgia is, so you can kind of get the idea of that. So just for 5,000 square feet and the new building, and I believe this was back in 2023, early 2023, it was $650,000.
Wow.
And it's ridiculous of what that kind of cost. And so we found another building that came up on the market, and we ended up purchasing that building. But after inspections that we had from the city and things like that, we still ended up finding stuff that had to be fixed. And so the current property that we own at the moment, we're not renting it. We ended up purchasing it completely so that, we don't have to worry about, we go and put a paint booth in there, and then the landlord decides they don't want to rent it anymore. Now we got a problem. So that's kind of where that decision came from. But, I've gone through all the electrical in the building. They had a residential panel in the building that you're not allowed to have. If, we had to update the building, and at that point, you're not grandfathered in anymore. If you have to update anything, you have to bring it up to modern codes. So we had to get a new panel from Georgia Power, which was $6,500 just for the panel and the breakers.
Oh, wow.
That's not anything else. So,
Yeah.
because you have to have it and it's commercial, they know you're going to buy it. So we had to upgrade that. I got certified for electrical and plumbing and HVAC, and I've had I got mentors in those fields now.
So you can have another job of electrician or plumber if it doesn't work out, right?
I'm going to turn it down. I kind of like it, but I've done probably about 65% of the electrical in that building.
Nice.
70% of the plumbing and the HVAC. We had some friends come down from Virginia who are they're always at these Good Guys shows that we go to, and we typically get Airbnb with them all the time. And so he has an HVAC company in Virginia, and so he came down and installed the HVAC system for us. And like last week, and I was working on putting all the duct work up in the ceiling, and so I've been doing that. And that's what I'm doing on the weekends full time, basically, other than Monday through Friday working on the project. But yeah, it's the things that you don't know about pop up, and it's expensive, unfortunately.
Didn't you have termites too?
Yeah, we had termites in the back office area that we did not. Again, we had it inspected, and for some reason they didn't pick up on it. But it was so bad that they had eaten through a 2x12, two of them.
Jeez, how is that not getting caught?
Yeah, so but they were pretty bad. We my dad's been working on getting that cleaned up, and we already got cleaned up probably about 3 months ago. We got all the damage repaired and ripped everything out and replaced it. So, but the entire office area and I'd say it was like a nook. I'm putting a kitchen there now, but that entire first floor office section has been completely gutted and redone. All the electrical wasn't correct. They basically ran a hot and a neutral, no grounds. There were no grounds in that entire building, and so that's the most dangerous
that's real
thing.
Safe, no.
Yeah,
right. And they were sharing breakers with other circuits. It was the worst thing I thought. So all that, I stripped all that stuff out, and we put in metal conduit and did everything the right way. So. But, yeah.
So like in a worst case, best case scenario, if something goes wrong, you bear 60 or 70% of the responsibility.
Yeah, now you. Yeah, because it was more so the concern if, once us get shop insurance, if there's ever a fire, and it came down to the fact that it was because of like an electrical device behind the wall, and it was the previous, system.
Yeah,
they're not going to cover it just because of that. And so that was the final decision. After we ripped out the kitchen, we found bare wires behind the wall that were, and they didn't, not like bare, but they had loose hanging wires just strung in the wall. And again, no grounds, nothing like that, and nothing was correct. So that was kind of the last straw, and we just decided at that point, anything that's in the building that was on that previous panel, we completely decommissioned and removed it. And like I said, I've been running all brand new conduit through that entire building, and it's all metal, commercial grade EMT conduit. So, but yeah.
Yep, and right now copper is expensive. It's insane what copper is too. So, but as far as your business, I know your parents are heavily involved in everything, and you may not be thinking this far out, but do you plan on having a team, hiring people, things like that to get that production up and running when you get to that point, or are you going to do just smaller projects where it's just yourself?
Yeah, that's definitely something that's been on my mind. I already have a couple guys at this moment that are kind of in the background that might come on board next year. It just depends what this truck does. When we start showing next year, because next year we're going to be going to almost pretty much every Good Guy show. We'll be out the SEMA hopefully next year with the truck if everything goes to plan. But I'm trying to prepare somewhat for that to make sure that I have a plan in place if things kick off, rapidly, and I can hopefully profit from that. But my goal at the moment is and the way that we've structured the business is to have 2 full-time projects at the time being, with just me and possibly one other guy there. And that way, if I'm waiting on parts on one build, I can be working on the other build. So you always have something to work on. But 2 builds at the numbers we're talking and hourly rates and all that stuff, that's 100% sufficient for what the plan that we've put in place. And obviously, as we get established and things like that, I can slowly kind of expand and not grow so quick. I think that's kind of the biggest thing with businesses is you grow so quick and you can't keep up. And I'm trying not to do that. I don't, I think with the plan that we have in place, it's 100%. Everything as far as our financial advisors and everything I've talked to, it's 100% doable the way that we have it structured, just doing 2 builds at a time, because these aren't average builds. I mean, we're talking, you can't build a car right now for under 300,000
right.
done right. If you want it right, that's just what it costs. So
Right.
2 of those builds, me and possibly one other guy, is 100% sufficient. And then as we grow, that's obviously going to change. So
Nice.
I have the ability.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Have you talked about, because like you said, you don't want to bring cars in or start on projects you can't complete and have customers pissed off, because that's the worst thing that could happen, right? And you don't want to be rushed and not do quality work.
Yep.
Do you have you talked to Will or any other people that have shops to, even speccing a build, how to talk to the customer and the types of monies that because I know people, hey, how much is this going to cost me to do? Well, most shops that are doing custom builds or restorations put a range in there, but they don't guarantee it. They take money in to start the project, and then they have draws so often. They keep the customer up to date. But there's no way to say with prices change as long as the builds take 2 to 3 years. Sometimes prices change, or you can't get parts or whatever. You can't say with a website development like us, I can say it's going to cost you this much as long as you don't add X on.
Yeah.
Right.
A custom build or a full restoration, that's different. Have you talked to anybody about how to think about that so you're pricing these projects properly?
Yeah, I've actually 100% talked to Will. I've talked to Crystal at KTL. It's one of those things where, and I basically did landscaping from age 12 up until 3 years ago when I closed the business. That's what I did throughout high school. It helped me fund the Shelby build, so I had to pay for that. But I kind of had a good understanding of working with projects and things like that. I think the highest project I had during that time was we did a project over $10,000. And so that definitely helped. I wouldn't say that was all of the experience, obviously, but it is one of those things where this day and age, you cannot, I know, like I've had clients say, hey, what number can we be at to build a car? And I just tell them, I can give you an estimate, and it's this is a rough estimate. I cannot give you a dollar for dollar list unless you want to pay me to sit down and build the whole car in my head, which even at that time, it doesn't work either. There's parts.
Then you add 20% on top of that, right? You come up with that number and add 20 to 30% for inflation and other issues, right?
You can't control. Yeah. So it's strictly one of those things where I'm just gonna, and I've been doing it. I'm working with a client right now on a Mustang. Hopefully, he's going to go through with it, and he 100% understands this whole thing too. And so it's one of those things where I've learned talking to other builders in the industry, guys that I trust, that it's if you get a client that's hey, I need a dollar for dollar estimate, that's a red flag. Just don't even, you can try and give them an estimate, but at the end of the day, I think they're just going to nickel and dime you to the end of it. And for me, I just don't need that right now. And so I'd rather try and get a client that understands what my value is and what I'm putting forward. Because obviously y'all know I don't mind working late hours. And if someone wants to pay for that, then they're going to get a project done a lot quicker than most shops. So, it's one of those things where, and it's hard starting out trying to think of that too, because you have to start paying bills and things are going to start adding up. But at the same time, it's like you get stuck in that situation. It's hard to come out of it. From everything that I've gathered is getting out of that hole that you've put yourself in. And so what I've been telling clients is, I can give you a rough number on it. And at the end of the day, I can't uphold that number. I can give you a rough idea of what it might cost, but it can change. And I have a contract that I'm basically using for clients. And basically at the end of the day, I can give you a rough number on certain projects, depending on what kind of projects they are. If they're not like a full custom build, kind of like the C10, because that's a lot different. That's just a whole nother animal. But on a project similar to the Shelby, I can give you a really rough number because I've already done one. I know what parts I got in, labor, things like that, hours, and we basically add in 10%, plus or minus 10% on that rough estimate, and that's just what I leave it at. But again, on the contract, we leave it at, this is not a final adjusted number because we don't know what the economy is going to do. We don't know what parts are going to do.
Right.
That's not in our control, and we cannot base off of that. I mean, it's a business. You're not in business to lose money. You're in business to make money. And,
That's what they tell me.
Yeah, I know. It's a whole bunch of crap. So,
well, you bring up a good point, right? About understanding and sticking to what your value is, right? I think that we see really often in both sides of our industry is that there's a lot of people who come in who get caught up in the, like, I have to discount my services or I have to discount the work that I do in order to survive or to get the next customer or whatever it might be. And some of them will be willing to say, like, hey, yeah, I'll give you an exact number, right? If they think that that's going to get business in the door. Ultimately, we all know that that's going to hurt them in the long run. But understanding what your value is and sticking with that and staying strong to that, I think will do you well throughout your years, right? The time when you start saying, like, oh yeah, I'll give you what you're, this discount that you're looking for, or I'll give you these exact numbers, knowing that there's that potential for it to change, very, very much in our industry, will definitely help you as you grow, right? Because then your clients are going to respect that you do great quality work and you stand behind what you have and what you do is valuable.
Yeah, one of the things kind of going off that, kind of the thought process I had when we structured the business and everything, that how we're going to try and operate is basically like, if I only allow 2 builds in at a time, the way I'm starting out at the moment, if I have both those spots filled up, and then I have another client that comes along and says, hey, I want another build, or I want you to build me a car. At that point, I tell them, okay, well, you're going to be the next one in line. And I'll give you a call the second we get this project done. And so at that point, it becomes one of those things where if they're willing to wait on a list, then that's going to make you more sought after. And so that was kind of my thought process. And versus, there's so many shops that I've seen just going around the U.S. and just on the East Coast and stuff, and shops that aren't, I wouldn't say are involved with the show car community, but shops that are just doing kind of whatever comes in the door. You can't even walk through their shop, and that's something.
Yeah, how many of those have cars sitting in the back corner with an inch of dust on them?
Yeah, and you don't even know what's going on with it. And
yeah,
so
there's a customer going, what the hell? Where's my project, right? And that happens a lot. I've heard stories of people pulling cars from places because they didn't get them done. But understanding,
I know of 2 shops personally that are in my area that same situation.
I mean, we have enough space in our shop. Like I said, right now we have 5,300 square feet on the front side, and we're building another 3,000 square feet for the booth and the assembly room. But like, you could fill that shop with 10 cars if you wanted to.
Easily.
We are not, I'm trying to keep my shop, like, I'm epoxying the floors in 2 weeks. So you can get the kind of idea of the way I want my shop ran. So everything's going to be clean, orderly, shelved. And that's another thing you're paying for. You're paying someone to build your car and do it in a proper manner and keep everything at a high level of standard. I mean, I'm at school, we get a lot of training through Mercedes and a lot of these high-end companies. And so just getting to kind of rub elbows with those companies, I've kind of taken a little bit of thought in how their businesses are ran. I mean, if you look at Chick-fil-A, for instance, on how well their businesses ran, it's the same sort of thing. And so that's kind of what I'm trying to base my whole business and shop based off of is, satisfactory, quality of work, the way that everything is done, just the manner of it, keeping everything clean and orderly. That I think is going to portray to the client, hey, this is where I need to bring my car, versus.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
when you have employees come in, you have to educate them right from day one.
Exactly.
This is how we work.
Yep.
And if you don't like it, this isn't a place for you, kind of thing,
Right.
right? And also what I was going to say earlier is two things, understanding those red flags when you're talking to new customers, right? And going, nah, this just isn't going to work. We're not the right shop for you. And then being able to say no, right? Even if you had only one car there you're working on, you needed another one, not just taking it to take it. Say no, you're better off. Even not in my business. I learned the hard way. I've been in this 27 years, and I've taken projects to take them because we had to pay bills. Right. And we've regretted it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. It's one of those things where it's very, and as we're starting out, I'm gonna try to, hold to my word and not get into that pattern. But it's, I'm hoping we got a couple clients that are going to come through on projects so we can get this thing off the ground. But yeah, it's definitely one of the things that we're trying not to let happen. And I know that's one of the things that I've been told through my mentors to be careful with is definitely that. Right. I think at the moment I'm in a pretty good position as far as the work I'm putting forward. And obviously I've gone to school for it. I've won national awards for paint, refinishing through school. And so it's one of those things where it's like, don't let that success and just kind of what you've done so far fizzle out just because of the dollar. I mean, if I have to, I'll go work for someone to, make payments on my building or something,
Yes. No compromise. Right. And there may be a point where maybe you have to work part-time as you're growing the business. Right. And don't think of that as at a shop, someplace where you can advance your skills. Right. And then move into full-time as you grow the business. That's an option too, right? You could always go work, part-time. But I wanted to ask about SEMA. Are you a SEMA member?
Yes.
Are you a member of any of the councils or network groups like ARMO, HRA, FLN?
Not yet. I'm hopefully going to be a member of both ARMO and HRA at some point, since I'm trying to get my shop going, since we don't have a building yet. And if a client popped up through one of those organizations, I'm trying to be careful at the moment. But yes, hopefully in the next year or two, I'll be a member of both, hopefully.
Cool. Yeah, we'd love to have you. Obviously, I'm on ARMO. And Annette is newly minted SBN council member, so that's pretty cool.
Today's podcast is sponsored by Motorhead Digital. Motorhead Digital are digital marketing experts for your automotive aftermarket, restoration, performance, race, and restyling shop. They help you supercharge your shop's website, social media, and entire online presence to attract those badass customers you're looking for. Check us out at motorheaddigital.com.
Let me see here. I wanted to ask, have you considered, we talk a lot about marketing business. We talked a lot about starting your business, the red flags, things like that. We know that you have a really robust social media presence, but have you considered what you're going to do to build that online presence and market your business when you're ready to turn the volume up a little bit?
Yeah, even right now, we've been trying to be a little bit careful with, obviously, I've been focusing my media presence on the C10 mostly, not giving away too many hints about the shop until we're actually working out of it. But once things get off the ground next year, we're going to try to expand that a little bit, and I think we might end up working with you, on a website and stuff like that. But it's definitely one of those things at the moment we've been trying to be careful about not launching a website yet until we have a shop, and because it's one of those things where it's like if things did take off, you got to be able to hold it. So that's kind of deal
Yeah,
breaker
there's a
right
lot to that, right? I totally get that, but don't wait too long. And it's not
now.
me
Oh yeah,
saying that
yeah,
because we want to build
yeah,
your website, right? It's there's a lot of things that go into showing up on search, and what
right,
happens is there's things that relate to how long your website's been up and the content of your website. So, consider that. But I agree with what you're saying. You don't want to, dive in too quick, because then if the phone starts ringing, you're going,
yeah,
which isn't a bad problem to have, actually.
Right. Another thing to keep in mind, I know that you said you're, really kind of being watchful about what you put out on, media, is if you get to that point where you just feel like, I know I have 2 builds to work on and that's where my focus is. And whether that's you independently or you with somebody else, and you get to that like overwhelmed kind of feeling, in the sense of like, I just can't do all the build, do all this, like all these other things.
yep,
Don't forget that you have a great network to be able to tap into from your alumni of like, hey, we've got, people who could intern to help you, right? Like people
oh
who
yeah,
are eager to learn and want to be involved in something that don't necessarily require monetary exchange.
right. Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that. The plan is once the shop's up and running. I've already worked with Athens Technical College about having prospective students who are interested in getting into this field, because I mean, there's no one in our area, in my opinion, that are doing this quality of work to the level we're going to be doing around Athens, or even somewhat around the Atlanta area. And so we're going to try and offer that to students, and they'd have to fill out an application, and then they'd get selected, and they could come
Mm-hmm.
intern at my shop, and then just
Nice.
get a kind of feel for kind of how things work. And then if they like it and things work out, then they could possibly, if I have an opening, obviously, for a spot to work at the shop, that would be something that could lead into that. And so
Nice.
I'm going to try and work with the school pretty heavily on that, and, use that to my advantage as much as I can.
So one
Heck yeah.
thing
Plus, it's like you giving back, right? The youth
Oh
giving
yeah.
back to the youth.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my teacher, like I said earlier, I don't think the school imagined where that car was going to get.
Right.
I had the governor of Georgia reach out and congratulate me on getting it out to SEMA. He noticed it because he's very involved with the technical college system of Georgia.
Nice.
And there were a lot of people that saw that, and it had a lot of good press came out of that car. And so I'm definitely interested in trying to, make that an opportunity for other students, because like when I was there, I didn't have someone to look to necessarily. I had like a goal in my head, and I kept that goal all the way through, but there wasn't like someone that was doing what I wanted to do at that point in time. And so I'm trying
Right.
to maybe be a shadow for someone who wants to follow in those footsteps. They kind of have someone they can ask questions about, because at the time I didn't have anyone really other than my teacher to ask questions about.
So
Yep.
with that said, if you can't get anybody from that school, they just don't have anybody or nobody's interested.
Sounds like Barry's volunteering.
Yeah,
I'll tell you what, I went to school for auto services, and shops like this didn't exist. And that's why I didn't get into it, because I didn't want to be an oil changer, and
yeah,
life happened. But what I was going to mention is our podcast coming out hopefully later this week was Kira Dasko from UTI. And I don't know if UTI is in your area, but what we learned, and then I learned speaking to Kira, is they have a requirement to place students in jobs. And they also have a requirement to support alumni that come back and say, I'm looking for a job here. I'm going to need a fabrication job in a build shop.
oh yeah, 100%.
And
Yeah,
so there's an option there to look to UTI as well. And I was really surprised that they had an actual requirement. They have to help the students and support the alumni. That is just really cool.
yeah. We have that same sort of thing at school. We actually had 2 students come in this week who own shops that do collision repair, and they were doing that exact same thing this week. So,
Nice.
but yeah. So,
That's awesome. I love that.
yep.
The we usually ask this question is, when did you feel you were successful? You got a ways to go to really probably answer that question. But overall, talk about tell us about challenge. You've talked about a number of challenges. What is the biggest challenge that you see right now that you've seen, that you've felt getting this business, either whether it's the build or your shop? I'm curious, what's on your mind all the time is like real challenge.
Right now, it's just the money aspect of it, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So
Heck yeah, that's something that's like weighing over you, right? Like that's a ton of bricks on your shoulders. There's a lot of responsibility there. There's a lot of planning that still needs to happen and that you're going through those processes. So man,
it's
relate.
not, like I said, it's definitely not, I wish, like when I was getting into it, we knew ahead of time, talking to mentors, me and my parents talking to people that we knew in the industry that we had met at shows, what's the kind of number of the stuff costs just to get into it and things like that. We had a rough idea, but obviously it varies state to state. It's not going to be one number. But it's, I wish it wasn't as expensive so other people get into it. And again, at SEMA, the first year I was there, then I went back the second year and I kind of had like another vantage point of like just a view of everything. That's why the younger generation is not getting into this industry right now, is 100% because of that. I know several guys in my area who are trying to do the same thing I am. And I'm trying to, if an opportunity presents itself and they can come work with me, I'm 100% going to offer that to them so that they can keep doing it. I have a great opportunity. I'm 100% thankful for it. And, but it's, that's the biggest killer right now is just the money. And obviously economy is not, it's up and down. And so you can't base it off that. So,
right.
But yeah, the money right now is that's the thing we're trying to make work. And so that's, if I can get a couple of projects off the ground, I think we'll be fine. But, it's one of those things where, we're going to be, I don't want to say how much, but it's a lot.
Yeah.
So it's unfortunately.
Well, just be grateful you're not in California. Just think about that.
Yeah, no, we'd be
New York.
Yeah. So, and a lot of the stuff you have to pay attention to now is like, we're putting in a paint booth. Hopefully we're going to get, a downdraft booth is what I'd like to stick with. That's what I've been trained with at school. And, you got EPA requirements, you got EPD requirements, you got some cities might require fire suppression. Thankfully in our area, we're not required to have any of that stuff.
You have county, you have city, you have state, you have.
Wow. Yeah. Welcome to owning a business.
Yeah. I mean, just to give you an idea, just like fire suppression on a normal booth, you're looking at $25,000.
Wow.
Just to add that. And so, people who are wanting to get in it for that reason, those are the things that you have to think about, unfortunately. And thankfully, like I said, in our area, we're not required to have it. We're going to have certain implements in place if we do ever have something, God forbid, happen like that we have the resources to deal with it. But, $25,000 is a big expense to throw on something you're already trying to buy. And paint booths right now are, anywhere from 75,000 to 150,000. So it just depends what you get. But it's, the money aspect is kind of the main thing. And, through that, trying to market yourself and, I guess keep yourself up right now when you're trying to go through all that. So.
Right. Yeah. It's a lot to take on. That is no lie.
Yep.
Today's podcast is sponsored by Annette Bauer Creative. At Annette Bauer Creative, we understand the power of visual storytelling in transforming brands and driving growth. From capturing the essence of your products and services to showcasing the unique solutions you offer, our professional imagery and reels help bring your brand to life. Fuel your brand and ignite your vision at AnnetteBauerCreative.com.
Do you have any tips, advice, or for the audience as far as your short experience with the School of Hard Knocks? And we say School of Hard Knocks. What did you learn by just doing that would help somebody else avoid anything like that you're going, man, I wish I knew that?
I mean, if you're seriously interested in getting this industry, I mean, I would maybe you ask friends or something like this, but I'd say the things that are going to keep you going is like a very strong work ethic and
Mm-hmm.
dedication. Willing to work long nights. At the shop, like I said, Monday through Friday, I'm working on the C10 project at school from anywhere from 8 a.m. to 4 or 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday
Mm-hmm.
through Friday. And then on weekends, I'm working 100% of the time on the shop, trying to and keeping up with that. And so it's one of those things where it's like, and we've been doing that for probably about the last year. We've been doing that same thing for a whole year, and it's starting to catch up with me. But it's one of those things where it's like, if you want to see it succeed, those people that can pull it off, I've noticed, are working really long
Mm-hmm.
hours, and that's just what it costs. If it was easy, like that famous saying, if it was easy, everyone would do it. And it's not easy.
Mm-hmm.
Not everyone wants to do it, and it's because of that. It's until you get established and you kind of get like a footprint established. I think that's when things will somewhat settle down. But just because of that, you're still the business owner. There's not, people can say what they want, but at the end of the day, it's, it falls on you. And I'm trying to do things a little bit different to where it's not going to be something where it's like as stressful as that. We're trying to put certain things in place where it's going to be more spread out of a load on us versus on one person, because that's just not the right thing to do, in my opinion. And so I just say for someone that's wanting to get into it, I wouldn't say not get into it, but definitely talk to people who've been into it. Try to figure out like a 5-year plan of where you want to be in 5 years. What your skill set is. Can you do welding? Can you do body work? Can you do paint? The reason why I went to Athens Technical College was to learn primarily metal work and then body work and paint. And so I can do everything on a car. I can do metalwork, bodywork, paint, custom fabrication, stainless steel exhaust, mechanical. I can do electrical. I can do programming. I can do everything to just about stitch the interior. I can do upholstery up until you start stitching stuff, obviously. But I can do all the CAD. We were routing pieces for the C10 door panels this week, so I do all the CAD, SolidWorks. To I guess to make like a footprint, just look at your skills and where you're at, and if you can do a majority of them, from my vantage point, what I'm trying to do is, like, obviously, like we talked about earlier, is once I start working with Athens Technical College and we have a student come in, possibly they might not know something that I can teach them, and at that point I can teach them just about whatever the heck I want them to learn. And so it's one of those things too where you're not going to be limited on knowledge, because knowledge is the key to keep building what you're trying to do. And so I took it on just because it was one of those things where I didn't have the money when I was doing the Shelby to go pay people to do other stuff. And so I learned it myself and learned how to do it on the C10 build. Like I've met more people at the peak of their game and learned from them. And so it's one of those things where it's, I think someone coming in, look at your skill set, figure out where to go if you don't have certain skills, and
be willing to make the sacrifice, right? Just like what you said, like being a business owner isn't a Monday through Friday 8 to 5 job. Like you're on 24/7 all the time, and that's literal and figurative, right? So if you're not in the business, you're thinking about the business. And we've also seen circumstances where people are really great at doing their business, but they don't know how to work in their business, right? So I think that, like understanding like sacrifice is huge, and you don't get days off. Like there is definitely times that you need to take for yourself, and that is important. But in the perspective of actually being a business owner, like that's the joke, right? Like you get time off? No.
And going back to what you said about, no days off, it's something where, and you would learn it relatively quick, but it's one of those things where it's like, you have to enjoy what you're doing in this industry. If you don't enjoy it, you're going to be in and out quick.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You will
Because
burn out
it's
fast.
something that I enjoy. I'm trying to not let the business side of things change any of that right now. But, like I said, both my parents, and this is another thing to think about with anyone coming in is, just make sure you find the right people that can help you. My mom has a master's in business. And so obviously she's been able to help us with, contracts, figuring out doing just basic stuff like QuickBooks and things like that. I just don't have, the time because I need to be working on the shop and the project. And so it's one of those things too, where it's you're trying to balance out your time, and hopefully once things get going and things have kind of like leveled out on the plane and stuff, I can afford to pay. So, obviously things are going to get to the point where it's going to be like, it's better worth my time and money to pay someone to do that, because I'm not as good as that and they're better at it than I am. And I'm better at doing this. And so it's one of those things you have to look at, but it's, like I said, I mean, my mom, she understands that. My dad's an engineer, so he understands a lot of the build stuff. So, if you don't have that, it's not a deal breaker. It's just find the right people.
When you're looking for people, for team members, you said it we do it in this business. You write down all the things that you know how to do, and then you make a list of things that you know how to do that you could probably find somebody better to do it, or it's something you know how to do it, but you don't like to do it. And there's probably somebody out there better. Get those people to do that stuff. Same with other back office things. Social media and marketing stuff is back office. Okay. I look at that. Okay. When we say back office, all the stuff your mother's doing, things like that. But there's also people out, you don't have to hire a full marketing agency to have somebody help manage your social media, update your website. There's virtual assistants out there that you can bring in, at least to start, to get you out of doing that kind of stuff so you can focus on the builds and working with your team. Don't forget that. There's a lot of people that go, I don't even know what a virtual assistant is.
Well, we look at things like, like I take, for example, like if I was to break it down, like what my hourly rate is to do something, right? Like my hourly rate might not be worth something that is like a back office type of thing that somebody who is at a lower salary rate could do and be happy to do it, right? Because you're employing them, you're helping them feed their family, helping them live a life, helping them take care of themselves. But it also frees up your time to be able to do things that are very specific to, like the builds or, like establishing those relationships or whatever.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, like I said, that's one of the things we're going to try and focus on once we get things settled and things are hopefully moving up and things are kind of working out. We're trying to put certain things and certain people in place who can manage the things that obviously I'm not going to be able to manage. And I need to be out in the shop working on stuff 100% of the time. And so, it's going to be a learning experience for sure. I'm not going to say no to that, but it's definitely one of those things where, it's going to happen at some point for you to, to do everything.
And you can't be afraid to fail either. If you talk to any of your mentors, they'll tell you, oh yeah, I screwed up a lot of stuff, but I learned from it.
Yeah, you learn from it. Yeah, you learn very quick.
Unfortunately, in this industry, it can cost you money. So you got
I think almost most industries, it can cost you money.
Yeah, I would agree with that, or not for sure. Hey, so before we get into our speed round that Annette handles so awesomely, I want to go off track here a little bit, because you mentioned when you signed up that what do you do in your free time? And I want to understand more about Legos and trains.
Okay, I wasn't even sure what you're talking about. I grew up with Legos and Lionel trains when I was younger. My grandfather, who's passed away, he had a lot of Lionel trains, and so that's kind of what I gravitated towards when I was younger. And so that's kind of where I think I got my mechanical mindset from, is, I wasn't behind a computer. I couldn't sit behind a computer when I was younger. And so I was either outside on the farm with my grandfather working on the farm, or I'd be with my other grandfather messing with his trains and helping him do electrical on them and mechanical and
Oh,
stuff like
that's
that.
cool. A lot of kids are just computer age, right? They're on computers all the time, games and things like that. So it's great to hear that you did that.
Yeah, so that's kind of where that came from, and 100%. I think half the stuff I'm able to do right now is because of that. Just having that experience. If I was with my one grandfather, we were on a farm, you know, picking up sticks or putting up a gate or just doing all kinds of stuff outside based and stuff like that. And so it was it was good having someone like that. But that's kind of I think where those hobbies came from. And then I kind of branched into Legos because that was just something I enjoyed, and you could change the model that you built and build something else and things like that. But
So when I was a kid, my Legos are still in a box in the attic. We didn't have all those cool kits, and my camera keeps moving, and that's laughing at my camera. Um, it's got a mind of its own. But anyways, yeah. So you guys all the kids had those cool kits, right? That you can build on. We didn't have any of that. We had to use our imagination. We used to build skyscrapers and boats and cars, but they're not as cool as the Lego stuff is now.
I'm just a huge Lego people fan. Like I have Lego people all over my office.
well, if you're
She's
fine
got
with
a
that,
minion behind her right there. I'm a minion.
I do.
So I love minions. I don't have any.
I have a full size one that my husband built for me. It's like a little over 3 feet tall.
I saw that. That is so cool.
if you're fine with it, I'm up here in our, I guess, hobby room, but my stuff is right there.
That's
wow.
so cool. I love it.
What's the tower? The tall thing?
It's like a haunted house.
Oh,
So,
is that trains or?
Yeah, it's all trains. Yeah, it's all
That's so cool.
That's cool,
Everything.
man.
digital and stuff. But
I love that.
I kind of come up here when it's you're trying to get a break, and I come up here to clear my head. So, but
Nice. I love it. I love it. Well, it's a perfect way to be able to just kind of decompress a little bit. So, like every business owner needs that no matter what it is.
Yeah.
Like Barry likes to go out and shoot, or Barry likes to go out and spend time with his Corvette. I spend all of my time quite literally at the racetrack. So that's where I decompress at. And, like sometimes, even though that this is something that we truly are passionate about being in the automotive space at whatever level it is, we still need something that kind of balances us out a little bit. And I like that you have something that ties you back to your family history, the root of your family, and gives you something that kind of just disconnects like all the stresses of what's happening and kind of just lets you decompress. So that's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's especially right now. It's coming to play. I mean, like I said, I basically work from Monday through Saturday, and then Sundays I typically try not to do anything. So, but yeah,
you just die on Sundays.
I want to ask you this. It popped into my head. You're talking about all the work you do. Do you actually keep track of all the hours you have in the C10 so far? Do you kind of keep track of
Barry,
that?
he knows exactly how many years it took him to build the Shelby. Of course he knows how many hours he has put into the C10.
How many hours do you have into the C10?
Let me pull up my list I got going.
Yeah.
He said it took him 2 years and 4 months to get where he is right now.
Yeah. I want to know hours. That's the real number.
We're at 5,240 hours right now on the C10.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's insane, dude.
And some of those weeks lately, most of them have been 40-hour weeks because I've only been limited from 8 to 4, or 7:30 to 4. And then some of those are 65-hour weeks on some of them. But,
oh my God.
Did you say 5,200? What would it be an hourly rate for that kind of work?
Not enough.
Yeah, a lot.
All right. Well, at my hourly rate, that would be, holy mackerel. Hang on. Let me see. Oh, $910,000. Wow.
Yeah, last
Man,
year,
$1 million vehicle.
last year I had 20. It was 25. No, 2,000 and like roughly 2,050 hours in it last year. So I only took, I think, I want to say I only took 9 or 10 days off last year.
Oh
So,
my gosh.
but
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Wow. Talk
you
about
know,
dedication.
Hey, that's what it takes. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
absolutely.
Just think, like, in 5 years, we're going to be like, oh, yeah, that's right. We talked to Thomas when he was just starting out.
If he'll even talk to us, I don't know, man. He's
Just
the future ship
remember
crew
the
chief.
little people.
you know where the shop is, so you can always barge in there and just pull me out of the shop.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Awesome. Well, we always like to wrap up our podcast with what we call a speed round. And so when we do this, quite literally, I want you to respond with whatever is the first thing that comes to mind. I don't want you to put too much thought into it. It's kind of like an off the cuff, off the top of your head kind of a thing. So, first question is, hold on, my thing disappeared. What is your favorite driver, team, hot rod, muscle car, or truck?
Mustang.
Okay. Favorite tool in your toolbox?
Impact.
That's actually, I like that one a lot too. Good choice. Do you have a favorite racetrack, event, or show, car show?
Good Guys Columbus.
Cool. And then last question is, this one always stumps everybody, so feel free to think on it a little bit. What is the best advice you've ever received, and from whom?
It'd probably be, going back to what we talked about earlier, just, being vigilant and staying aware of kind of like what I guess clients you might have coming your way, trying to talk you into doing like a build for a solid number. And I talked to Will Posey about that twice because I had two people approach me about it, and he just said, look, if you do that, it's one of those things where you have to be careful because you could, you're going to lose money in the end of it. And so I put that on Will Posey. He definitely guided me in the right direction on that.
Nice.
Awesome.
And it sets you up, right? It sets you up for if you open that door, essentially open Pandora's box, you set yourself up to kind of create that pattern. So when you do say like, hey, I appreciate the opportunity, but that's just not something that I can help you with. And you stand strong with, like you said, like, this is where I'm where my strengths and my values are, then you set a precedence within your industry. So I think that's super awesome.
It's one of those things too where I'm trying to get, and hopefully, like I said, hopefully I get to this point, but I want to get to where it's, and it might be where it is right now, but like if you have a client that comes to you, it's one of those things too where you have to base it off, where you want to be in 5 years, where you want to be in 10 years. Is that car or project going to help further, move me in the right direction, or is it going to take me in the wrong direction? So that's 100%. Something I've been thinking about too. So it's like, you have different builds and different projects. I've definitely learned, like I said, there's not a lot of people coming into the industry. And so I'm trying to, I'm putting my best foot forward with, my shop. Hopefully y'all can come see the shop at some point, but like when you walk in the shop, it's not a normal restoration shop. It's a very nice, I'd put it almost on the level of Ken Digg on how the way he runs his shop. I think he told me he was mopping floor for the most part of his time, after hours when everyone left. And so that's how I kind of view my shop. I want it nice. I want it clean. And so, if someone's willing to pay for that, that's the level of work that they're going to get. I mean, if you see me mopping the floor late night, take a guess of what work you're going to be getting. You're going to be getting very good work out of that, So it's, I just think there's so many shops right now that aren't putting their best foot forward, and I want to capitalize on it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot that get complacent, right? That they get lazy in what they're doing, or they more importantly, they forget why they started doing it.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the killer at that point. I mean, I think someone told me this, and I don't know, I can't remember who told me, but I think how it goes is, a salary is a dream killer at that point.
Mm-hmm.
You're not willing.
I've heard that.
Once you get a salary, you're working for someone else at that point.
Yep.
They don't have a care for your dreams or have a care for what you want to do. It's, they're paying you to do a job, and you come in and do it mindlessly. That's up to you. But, you only live once, and I like to live it, the best way I can. And that's the dream I got. And, like I said, by God, I'm going to work for it. So
there you go.
That's awesome.
I think the greatest thing that I have learned in my business is not to let fear dictate what my future holds. So, there's always going to be risk that you have to take in order to gain the reward. And if you sit back and let fear dictate what the next decision is going to be, you're never going to be on the success side of that.
Yeah. Like I said, don't have fear to fail. You are going to fail, but you're going to learn. Yeah. The big thing is learning from that, right? And
right.
And also, so anyways, we're going to leave. I have one last question that I'm going to actually leave when we have you on 2 years from now. And we're going to talk about a documentary I think you're working on that you put in. I'm not going to get into that. But that's it. And thanks for tuning in. Thank you, Thomas, for joining us today. Can you tell people how to reach out to you, how to find you online, how to connect with you, things like that? And if they're thinking about doing an awesome build, 2 years from now when you're ready, or
hopefully next year.
I was going to say, wait, do it next year.
Well, he's got already some lined up, so I don't want to stack him up too much. So tell everybody how they can. He's
got to build his pipeline, Barry. He
Yes.
needs guys waiting. He needs the wait list going.
So tell
right now, like I said, I got
can
my Instagram and my Facebook, and so you can reach it at thomas.performance.engineering. So Thomas Performance Engineering, it'll pop up either way. So that's where you can reach me. And yeah.
Cool. Well, it was great meeting you.
Yep, you too. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah. Heck yeah. That's so cool. Thanks, Thomas, for being here. Thanks for being on the Gearheads and Gasoline podcast, where we're fueling your success. We know you don't want to miss an episode, so don't forget to smash that bell so that you get notified of every new episode. Click that like button, leave us a comment, and share with your people. And visit us repeatedly. We love it.